All right, let's go. Good morning. Good morning. I always do that. Good evening.
It's morning somewhere.
It is morning somewhere, yes. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us for the learning of Parashat Shavua. This week we're going to study Parashat Va'era. A lot of beautiful things to talk about. We would like to dedicate tonight's learning for the Refuah Shlema of Kol Cholei Israel, especially Mordechai Merda ben Evelyn, Yael Chaya bat Shachnaz. Any other names, gentlemen?
Abraham ben Nahama.
Abraham
Ben Nahama.
ben Nahama, Shmuel Moshe ben Penina, Yaakov Yisrael ben Chanes Helen, Rabbi Baruch ben Sivya. Kol Cholei Israel, Hashem should send them all a Refuah Shlema very, very quickly. Okay, so over here, Rashi tells us in the beginning of the parasha a very interesting thing. The pasuk, as we mentioned on Sunday, the pasuk starts off with the name of Elokim. Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe. Elokim spoke to Moshe, Vayomer elav, and he said to him, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Now, the question that everybody asks is why? Elokim, as you know, represents judgment, din. There are different names of God. Elokim is the name of God that represents severity, judgment. The name of God that represents mercy is Hashem. The question that we have to ask is why does the pasuk start off in the parasha that Elokim spoke to Moshe, Vayomer elav, he says to him, I am Hashem. It's as if he's saying, I'm starting off with judgment, I'm ending off with mercy, right? Because Elokim represents judgment and Hashem represents mercy. That's the general understanding. You're welcome. The question is, what's going on? Comes along Rashi and explains over here the reason that Hashem uses the name of Elokim is due to the fact that when Moshe, at the end of last week's parasha, spoke to Hashem regarding the situation of the Jewish people, what he told Hashem was, Hashem, I don't understand. You told me to come and to redeem the Jewish people, but from the moment that I got here, it's only gotten worse. It used to be that the slaves were able to make bricks because they were given straw. They would take the straw, they would bake them into bricks, and they were able to come up with the number that they were supposed to come up with. They met their quota, they met their ratio, their ratio every single day. Now they took away the straw, so it's much harder for them to do what they have to do. So I don't understand, Hashem. From the moment that I got here, they've had to work much harder. So lama hareota la'am hazeh. Why did you do bad for this nation? Why did you make it bad? So Hashem is now telling Moshe, Vaydaber Elokim, Hashem is speaking harshly to Moshe because you can't say that to HaKadosh. Why did you do bad? Hashem doesn't do bad, right? This is where there is a problem. Hashem is not doing bad to the Jewish people. But let's read Rashi. Lo lechinam shelachti. Rashi says, Vayomer elav Hashem ne'eman leshalem sachar lamitalchim lefanai. First of all, I want you to know, Moshe, I am trustworthy that I will pay those that do good in front of me. I'll give them their reward. Velo lechinam shelachticha. I didn't send you for no reason. I sent you, right? Ki im lekayem devarai shedibarti la'avot harishonim. I sent you in order to fulfill my promise that I said to the forefathers, to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that they will have their nation leave this country and then eventually get Israel. So I'm sending you for this promise. Now, the question that we have to ask on Rashi is, did Moshe say that he was sent for no reason? Moshe never said I was sent for no reason. He knew why he was sent. He knew he was sent to save the Jews. What he was saying was, Hashem, why did you make it harder on them? Right? Hashem says, I didn't send you for no reason. Okay, I never said that I was sent for no reason. I know why I was sent here. But why is it that you made it worse for the Jews? Right? So over here you have to understand one thing. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Hashem, Lama hareota, why did you do bad? Why did you make this bad for the Jews? You made it worse. So Moshe Rabbeinu over here has a question based on a misunderstanding. That misunderstanding is the following. You look at something sometimes and you see Elokim, you see harshness, you see judgment, you see severity, you see punishment, you see bad. You understand? That's how you interpret it. So that's because our vision is limited. Vayomer elav, Hashem says to Moshe, Ani Hashem. It's all mercy. It's completely misunderstood by your limited mind. Because little do you know, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe, that these people, I told Avraham, you weren't there, but I can let you know. How many years did I tell Avraham that the Jewish people are going to be enslaved? 400. 400. How many was it at the end? 210. What made the difference? The fact that they had to work harder. The fact that they were that they were under such a workload that in 210 years, they were able to accomplish what it took 400 years to do. Now ask anybody, would they rather that? The answer is, of course, I don't want to be slave for 400 years. I would rather be 210. So the 210 is actually an act of mercy. Little do they know that. They're looking at their situation. They're saying it's bad. Lama harayota, why are you making it worse? Harder. It's much more difficult for us now. So why are you making it hard for us? Lama harayota.
In order to make it less.
Says Hashem to Moshe, you don't understand, this is the ultimate mercy. Because this is actually causing them to have a much lesser amount of years that they have to suffer. It's 190 years less of a difference. Yeah.
1 year they work at 190 years.
Not 1 year. I'm not saying 1
How
year.
long take Moshe take them to get up?
I'm not saying that it's just at this time.
I know.
It was the whole time. But at this point, it got even worse.
But work hard.
They did work hard.
So for that time after.
But this is now even harder. The point is, all the hard work and the increased hard work
for 190
is
years.
correct.
So that means that 2 years, 1 year.
I'm not saying that. It could be that it was more than that. Not necessarily only these last few days got them the whole 190. Could be that it was spread out over time also. But my point is that we look at it as bad. Really, it's Hashem doing a chesed with us. That's what he's telling us. Starts off the pasuk, Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe. So Elokim is talking to Moshe. First of all, why are you saying I did that? You look at my judgment, you say, oh, this is judgment, this is harshness, this is severity. No, you're making a big mistake. It's all mercy. It's all mercy. And what I want to do is I would like to talk about this concept. In a lot of different areas, we find this very important concept. There's a story that's brought down in one of the Midrashim about Eliyahu Hanavi, who came to visit a great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. And Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi wanted to travel together with Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi said, no problem, but you can't ask any questions. Familiar with the story? You know the story? You guys know that?
It's good.
Guys, you know this story? Yes.
Tell.
Okay, so I'll tell you
Very
this. Okay, very important to understand these things. So Eliyahu Hanavi takes Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, who again is one of the greatest tzaddikim. He takes him on a trip to a little shack in the forest. They see a very poor old couple. They have one cow. And what? You know the story? Okay, so they have one cow. So they see the cow, and the two rabbis ask for some help. They ask them to give them some food, to have them, maybe stay over. They host them. They're willing to do it. They have nothing. They're dirt poor, but they take them in. They're there. They stay overnight. They wake up in the morning. They leave. Eliyahu Hanavi says, I have to pray for a minute. And Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi overhears Eliyahu Hanavi praying, Hashem, please kill their cow.
Wow.
The one cow that they have, Hashem, kill it, knock it out.
That was
Okay,
sustenance.
that was the whole thing. That gave them their milk, that gave them whatever it is that they had, killed it. Okay, fine. So they leave, and as they're leaving, they hear the cow drop dead, and the husband and the wife are crying, "Oy boy, what do we do now? We don't have our cow," etc. A whole thing. Okay, real bad. So they continue on their journey, and they go to a location with a huge mansion, beautiful, beautiful house. And Eliyahu Navi says, "Let's knock on the door." They knock on the door, nobody answers the door. Knocking, nothing. He says, maybe they didn't hear us. So Eliyahu opens up the door, walks inside. He sees the family is dining, beautiful dinner, feast. There are servants, there are people taking care of them, serving them back and forth. And he says, maybe you guys didn't hear us, we were knocking. And the husband says to his wife, I told you, how many times, he says to the wife, did I tell you have to keep the door locked? People walk in, they will ask for money. Now look, we have to deal with these guys. They say, listen, maybe you can give us some food, maybe you can give us a place to stay. There's no, we're not interested. We don't have uninvited guests. You have to reserve a place. You didn't reserve, a whole story. Anyway, he says, but we have nowhere to go. So he says, well, you could sleep outside underneath a little terrace over there. You could, you'll have a roof over your head. They didn't give him any food, nothing to drink, just you have a little roof on top of you. You could stay over there, okay? So this guy had a wall in his house. That wall was broken. It wasn't built. So
The rich guy?
the rich guy, he had one wall that was broken. They wake up in the morning, they leave, and Eliyahu Navi says, I have to pray before we go. They're hungry, they still didn't eat anything. But Eliyahu Navi says in his prayer to Hashem, please rebuild this man's wall very fast. And surely enough, as they're leaving, people are on the way, they come to fix the wall, everything is good, the walls gets fixed, and they're on their way. Okay?
Seems like he's happy.
Now Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi is wondering, this guy didn't give us anything. He made us sleep outside underneath a small little roof so that the rain doesn't pour on our heads, and you're praying that he should have his wall fixed. What did he do to deserve that beautiful prayer from you, Eliyahu Navi? Okay, kept his mouth shut. They continue on to the next place. They go to a shul, they come to this shul, beautiful, gorgeous shul. Everything is perfect. And they could tell that everybody here is bli ayin hara, a very wealthy person, and it's a very wealthy community. These guys show up, and then they start hearing people after Mincha Ravit, look who it is again. It's these collectors, they always come here. Now somebody has to find a place for them to sleep. Now somebody has to give them food. Now we have to, and then some guy says, you know what, enough is enough. We already see this too many times. Let's give the shamash some money. Everybody will give a little bit of, a few coins here and there. Shamash will go to the store, he'll buy them bread, he'll buy them salt, water, and finish. And that's it, they're sleeping right here. Nobody take them in. We can give them a little bit of food, and next, that's it, okay? That's what happens. So they get their bread and their water, they get, that's it, they sleep overnight, they leave, and as they leave, Eliyahu Navi prays, Yiratzon Hashem, may be your will, that each and every one of them should be a leader, should be a boss, should be the best of the best. Right? So again, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi is going crazy from this. Okay, that's an odd thing to say as we go, right? And they continue on their way. As they travel, they have to pray again. They find another shul. This shul, the people there see guests. Guests! This is amazing. You have a place to stay, you have a place to eat. Can we give you some food? Can we give you a place to stay? How long are you going to be here for? We're happy to host you. We want to take you in, etc. And they all take them out somewhere and they eat together and they rejoice together and everything is good. And they sleep overnight in some very comfortable place. They wake up the following morning, back on their way. They leave. Eliyahu Navi says, I have to make a little tefillah to Hashem. So what does Eliyahu say? Says Yiratzon, they should have one leader. That's it. Okay. Now he's amazed. He says, okay, at this point I'm done. Now he says, I have to ask you, How could you pray these things? He says, these people took us in, were good to us. They were so kind to us. I don't understand. Here you are, for those people you're praying, everyone should be a CEO, everyone should be a boss, everyone should have everything and be top of the line. For these guys, they should have one guy, one leader. What? Doesn't make sense. We had this couple with the cow. That's their only source of livelihood, giving them everything. You prayed that the cow should drop dead, and the cow died. Why? And this guy that was such a piece of dirt, this guy gave us nowhere to sleep, no food, and his wall should get rebuilt. I don't understand for the life of me. So Eliyahu said, listen, you broke your condition. You promised me you're not going to ask, you asked. So therefore, we now have to split ways. I'm not taking you anymore. That's the end of it. But since you asked, I'll answer you. Because the cow, the story over there was Hashem decreed death on the wife. She was going to die. Now, if you would ask that guy if he'd rather the cow or his wife, I guarantee you he'd give much more than the cow to save his wife. So therefore, instead of the wife, I prayed that the cow should die.
It's a good wife.
Right?
Good wife.
Exactly. I prayed that the cow should die. Okay. Now, the person that we went to his house and he was a jerk to us and he didn't let us even eat anything, that guy had a hidden treasure under that wall. If he would have taken apart that wall with him by himself, and he wouldn't have workers come and just quickly patch it up, so then he would have discovered this massive treasure that he has buried over there. He doesn't know about it. Now that it got patched up and everything was good, so he's never going to discover that money that he has in his own property. He has no idea about it, but he's never going to know about it. So I pray that the wall should get rebuilt very quickly, and workers came and fixed it, and eventually you should know it'll fall down again and I'll have to do it again. So that's why I prayed for that he should never discover what he has. That's number two.
Why did he curse him? Why didn't he say Hashem should help him open up his arms?
Because he was a jerk to them.
Well, why don't you?
You don't get Eliyahu Navi's blessing. Okay, Eliyahu Navi was known for being fire. All throughout Tanakh, Eliyahu Navi was fire. When people were worshiping idols, Eliyahu Navi called a drought for 2 years. It didn't rain in Israel. 2 whole years. It means what? Tremendous. He was so sharp, as they say. And that's what he did. Now, came time that he was in the shul with all these rich people that didn't want to give him anything. He prayed when they left that each one of them should be a leader, a CEO, a boss, because like that, they all fight with each other. Wow. Like that, they all get into arguments with each other because this guy's a boss, that guy's a boss, everybody's a boss. Everybody thinks they run the show, so they all clash with each other, right? There's no shalom. So Eliyahu Navi, so again, you think something is such a beautiful blessing, little do you know, it's a disaster. And the last place that they were all helping them and taking care of them and feeding them and housing them and everything, we pray they should have one leader, one guy that's going to be the best of all of them. He's going to lead them. He's going to take care of them. He's going to be the head, and everybody will follow him. It'll be b'shalom. Again, you see something, and you think that it's the worst of the worst, but little do you know that it's the best of the best.
We're allowed to curse Jews.
Again, if your name, listen, no. The answer is if your name is Eliyahu Navi, then you know what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. By us, we say no. We say that you're supposed to bless people, always only bless people.
Even the biggest he made mistakes and messed up.
It's true. Eliyahu Navi was chastised by Hashem for that, for being too harsh. Yes, that's why when he prayed, Eliyahu Navi prayed at a certain point that he should die. He was so upset with what was going on, he asked Hashem to take his life. And he found himself under a tree, hadn't eaten for many days, and Hashem sent ravens to feed him. They brought him food, transportation. That was the original Uber Eats, right? They brought him food, the ravens brought him the food, and he ate. So Hashem wanted to show him that you should know even ravens, which are considered to be the most vile and the most disgusting birds, that they actually eat all the roadkill and they eat all of these things. Even they have compassion on you. So how are you not going to have compassion on the Jewish people? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niya b'dvaro.
Amen. But to clarify, he never cursed anything. Again, bless him. He built
No.
Cow.
No. Eliyahu Navi did bring about a drought, right? He said it's going to be a drought until I say so, right? So that lasted for a long time. Okay. So, Abotai, this is something which we have to be aware of. I want to share with you some more important stories about this, which I saw. Did I ever tell you the story about the boat, the British boat that was traveling to Australia in World War II?
No.
This is an incredible story from Rabbi Shalom Shvadron. Rabbi Shalom Shvadron says over this maaseh, which is really amazing. He says the following. He says that there were people that managed to get out of Germany on time. And they actually managed to go, they were Jews. They were running away from Germany. They were German Jews. They managed to make their way to England, no less than England. And they were there. And the British were concerned about them that they might be German spies. So the British were afraid to keep these people in England proper. So what they decided to do was they decided to get them on a boat and ship them off to Australia. So they took these German Jews and they wanted them away from everything. So they took them to Australia where they would live in Australia, away from Europe. Now, at the time, there was a lot of fighting going on between the British and the Germans. And the Germans had very powerful air capabilities at the time, and they were downing lots of British planes. So the captain of this ship that was taking these German Jews to Australia, it was a totally British vessel and everybody knew about it. The captain hears on the radio that back in Europe, German planes took down a whole lot of these British planes, a lot. A big chunk of the Royal Air Force was gone. So he hears this and he's so upset. And he says to himself, they're downing my planes over there in Europe. And I'm taking these pieces of garbage on a boat somewhere to Australia. Meaning, because he's in his mind, these guys are regular Germans, so they're Jewish. They're Germans. These are the Germans. These are the enemy. He was so upset that he took all of the luggage that they had with them, their possessions, the last few things they were able to take with them from Germany. He took everything and he threw it overboard. Everything. So these people that left with barely anything, the one suitcase that they had with them, this guy took it and threw it overboard. So he was so upset. He was so mad. And they were very, very sad. You can imagine. You leave everything behind. You manage to take with you just a few precious valuables, maybe some sentimental things from your parents. Who knows what? The little that you were able to take with you is now sinking in the ocean. It's devastating. So that's the end of the story. They got to Australia and they made it, Baruch Hashem. Like 40 years later, there was a discussion about this story on the British TV, and somebody got up to explain what happened over there. And he says the other part of the story that people did not know. What happened was that very boat was being followed by a German submarine. A German U-boat was following this boat all from Europe all the way on the trip to Australia. It was following it the whole time. And at a certain point, they wanted to knock it out because they got confirmation it was a British vessel. They wanted to torpedo it. What happened was that this guy threw the luggage. They see all of the stuff floating around them. And they managed to actually get some of it and bring it into the boat. They open it up. They see people have written letters in German. They see things in German. So they don't know who's on the boat, but they think that they have either German prisoners of war or they've got German citizens that they've taken captive somewhere. So they decided not to torpedo the boat because they found these letters written in German, right? So then when they found out that the guy had unloaded all the people and now he's making his way back to Britain, they torpedoed him and he died. So this guy got what was coming to him for being so bad to the Jewish people on the boat. But at the same time, the fact that he did that is what saved everybody's life. So again, you see, Vaidaber Elokim, you see, oh, this is judgment, this is harshness, this is severity, this is X, Y, and Z. But it's really, Vayomer Elav, Ani Hashem, you got it all wrong, this is Hashem. It's mercy. It's not you're misunderstanding what's going on over here. I have a couple of more amazing things to tell you about this. This was the Khatam Sofer. The Khatam Sofer was Rav Moshe Sofer of Pressburg. He was the chief rabbi over there. It's in Hungary, Budapest, that area over there. And the Khatam Sofer, when he was younger, he learned in a yeshiva in Minsk. Now, in Minsk, the way that they used to do it is they would host the yeshiva boys in the houses of people that were very wealthy. So the Khatam Sofer was a young yeshiva boy, and he was being hosted by this very wealthy family in Minsk. Now, at the time, the French were making conquests around Europe. So they had stationed French soldiers in people's houses. Now, if you're a Jewish family, all of a sudden you have to host 3 French soldiers. It's very weird, very strange, and nobody likes it. And definitely, if you're a yeshiva kid, you're like, what's going on over here? This is very strange. But one of these soldiers was very, he really liked the Khatam Sofer, who was a young boy at the time, maybe early teens. And he told him, look, there are certain things that, I see you're a very smart kid. I want you to teach me these things. Oh, thank you, you're too kind. Right? I want you to teach me certain things. He said, in return, I will launder your clothing. I'll take care of you also. I'll help you out in certain areas as well, too. Khatam Sofer said, no problem. And he taught him, and he sat with him, and he studied with him, and this French soldier eventually left, and that was that. Fast forward 30 years later, at this point again, the French were trying to have a fight with Austria. And the battleground between the French army and the Austrian army was Pressburg, where the Khatam Sofer was the rabbi. And what they did was the Austrians said that, the people were saying that the Khatam Sofer is a spy for the Austrians against the French. The French had control of the area. So the French bring the Khatam Sofer to a tribunal, to a court, to stand in for trial for treason, basically, again, with for espionage with the enemy. The judge comes out. The judge sees him, and he wants to meet with him in a room privately. The judge reveals to the Khatam Sofer, you don't remember me, he says, but I'm the soldier that you used to study with and used to teach me things 30 years ago in that man's house. He says, have no fear, everything's good. I'll take care of you. I know that it's an attack against you, it's a smear campaign against you. It's fake. I know. You would never do this. And he lets him go. Amazing thing. Again, here you are, you're wondering, why on earth do I have to sit here with a soldier from the French army? I want to learn Torah and yeshiva. I want to, live my life. I have to take care of this French soldier now. What's the story? Answer is no. It's Hashem's mercy many, many years later, which is going to help you. Sorry, I really wanted to talk about this tonight. It's important to drill this subject in. Rav Shach, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Panovich, was a big tzaddik. He passed away at, I think, age 109 or something like that. He was 880. No, like 109. He lived for many, many years. 108, 109, he passed away. He was very old. And he was saying Shiruim almost till his last days. He was going up the stairs, coming down the stairs. He would get up the stairs. I remember they told me that he would be like, could barely breathe. But then when he said the shiur, rapid fire, nonstop talking. It was like a miracle. Anyway, they asked him one time to speak to an orphan. This kid was an orphan, and he was having a hard time with shidduchim or something like that. Things weren't going well for him. So they asked him to speak to Rav Shach. So Rav Shach said, first of all, you should know, there's really not much that I could tell you to help you, because I know the pain of being an orphan. It's terrible. He himself was an orphan. Rav Shach, alav shalom, was an orphan. And he tells him, look, it's a big problem. It's not easy. But I want you to know that a lot of times you see things that look amazing, not necessarily is it so good. He says, here's a story, true story, he says. When he was in yeshiva and he was younger, so all the guys, whenever they would go out with girls, before they even would hear about the girl, they want to know, is the father of this girl going to buy me an apartment? Yes or no? If the answer is no, I'm not even interested. I want to know, am I getting an apartment on my name? Yes or no? The answer is no. Have a good one. That's what they did. Now Rav Shach, at the time, he was not married, but he was a prodigy. He was like the top of the top of the top. They offered him a girl. He said, sure. Didn't ask any questions, didn't look into it. Said, yeah, let's go. It's good family, good this. We move. Now, everybody who would come back from their engagement, he would come back with, yeah, my father-in-law is paying for this, my father-in-law is paying for that, my father-in-law this, my father-in-law that. And they have the whole long list of what the father-in-law is giving. He came back zero. Didn't ask the father-in-law nothing. So they said to him, you, of all people, you deserve the top of the top of the top. You're the prodigy of the yeshiva. What are you doing? Said, okay, forget about it. He said he understood this is shidduch, min hashamayim, it's from Hashem. Okay, I don't get an apartment. That's what Hashem wants. Next. He got married to her. Everything was good. The Holocaust begins. People understand that there's a potential threat. And there's a potential, God forbid, for very bad things to happen. Rav Shach hears that. He says, I don't have anything. Yalla, we pick up, we move to Israel. That's it, finished. Everybody else was, should I leave? Should I stay? Should I live? That. By the time they made up their mind, finished. Said Rav Shach to this young man, he says, everyone was telling me that I'm out of my mind, that I'm crazy, that this is the worst decision I've ever made. But I decided that if this is what Hashem wants, this is the shidduch Hashem is sending me. She's a good girl, good family, everything's good. So I'm running with it. Whatever happens, then I have to have faith in Hashem. And that's that. And that's what he decided. So again, here we are, we see, wow, here's the prodigy of the yeshiva. The whole Europe is talking about this young boy, about what a big tzaddik this guy is and what a learned person he is. And instead of getting the best of the best, he ends up with this. Hashem, why are you doing that to him? Of all people, him, he should be the guy that gets zero from his father-in-law. And the answer is, you don't understand. That's exactly why he's getting zero. So he should be able to pick up and leave and lead the whole Am Yisrael when they go to Israel. You understand? It's a very important thing. And I'll end off on this point with one last point. There is a man who is a Holocaust survivor. He wrote many books about his experience in the Holocaust. His Hebrew name is Katsetnik. Katsetnik. Now it's a fake name. It's not a real name, but it's a name that he adopted for certain reasons to stay anonymous. He writes in his book something very interesting. He was suffering for years and years and years with visions of the Holocaust. He was a survivor of Auschwitz. Every night he would scream his head off. When he was going to get married, he told his wife, don't marry me. You're not going to be able to sleep at night. I always scream. I always have, post-traumatic stress disorder. I always have terrible, terrible things. It's a very hard life with me, he told her. Don't do it. She did it anyway. But he was always scared. He always had flashbacks and visions. In the 70s, he got word of a doctor in Holland that deals with these kinds of things. And what he would do is he would give the patient LSD. He would give the patient LSD, and the patient would get into some kind of a hypnosis. And during the hypnosis, the doctor would ask him questions. What do you see? What do you see? And then he would record everything. He would have long tapes of the whole entire session, maybe 2.5 hours of a long session of this guy under the influence of LSD, what he's asking him and what he's responding. And he would get to the guy's subconscious. He would go dig deep in the person's soul. It's a very interesting thing.
Is that allowed?
Well,
That's allowed to do?
he felt it was a medicinal thing to help the guy with his
But
terrible
halachic-
stress.
I think halachically or-
I don't see. As far as I know, I don't see any reason why not. You're not doing any black magic or anything. You're just giving him a drug so that he releases his emotion. So he got the recordings back from the doctor, and he wrote a book based on what he was saying in the recordings. Very interesting. So what he writes there is really, first of all, it's very, very scary. A lot of crazy stuff. But besides for that, what he writes there is something very interesting. He says, I see in the camps, he says it's a different planet. He calls it a different planet. I see in the camps, the Shiviti. I see the Shiviti hanging over the camps. What's Shiviti? We say it, it's part of, on every sign where they have the menorah, of the Ari, what does it say on top? Shiviti Hashem, Lenegdi Tamid. So it says Shiviti, and then it says in big letters Hashem, Lenegdi Tamid. So he says, I see the Shiviti. Now this is not an observant man. He doesn't do anything, no mitzvot, no nothing. He says, I see the Shiviti up in Shamayim over Auschwitz, he says. I see it. What? That's because when you're in the your neshama sees things that you don't see. You understand? He says, I see the Shiviti up over the Shamayim. Exactly. In other words, but the point is, it's the sign that they have in the front of the shul. Like we have, the point is, you see these words, Shiviti Hashem Negdi Tamid. The idea is that he goes on to say, I see Hashem everywhere. I see Hashem in Auschwitz all over the place. Everything is Hashem. He keeps talking about it and talking about it at great length. And the craziest thing is, what are we saying in this parasha? What does Yud Kei Vav Kei mean as opposed to Elokim? Elokim is judgment and mercy and severity and harshness, but Yud Kei Vav Kei is mercy. Achamim. How he could see mercy, Rachamim, in the camps at Auschwitz, that's very hard for us to understand. That's what I'm trying to say. You see, everybody's dying. Everybody's not just dying. The most brutal death ever. The most brutal. It doesn't get worse than that. Never been worse than that. So that's what I'm trying to explain. We don't know. We don't know where is what mercy exactly is over here. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But what we know is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, you won't know. You're limited. You are limited. You're small in your head. You don't see what I see. That's what the Pasuk is telling us. The Pasuk says over here by Moshe. Moshe tells Hashem. Moshe asked this question. Moshe asked this question to Hashem. Why is it that you see tzaddik veralo rasha tov lo? What does Hashem say? V'ra'ita et achorai ufanai lo yirau. You could see my back, you cannot see my front. You will never know what I know. Because if you're human, you're limited. The Khatam Sofer says, you could also read it this way. V'ra'ita et achorai, you will see it hindsight, after the fact. Meaning, many times, 30 years later, the Khatam Sofer is going to know why he had to sit down beforehand with this French soldier in his house. Yeah, it's going to take 30 years to know, that there was a German U-boat that was about to bomb you, and the fact that the guy threw the luggage into the ocean, now you know why he threw the luggage into the ocean. You didn't realize at the time. You said, where's the mercy over here? This is the worst thing. But little do you know, this is saving your life. So achora, you're going to see it hindsight. But ufanai, right? Ufanai, but before you wouldn't know. Meaning in front, at the time, looking forward, you don't know. You understand? Now, the truth of the matter is that sometimes, even an entire lifetime, we don't know. But our job is to have that emunah that there is a reason. There is some greater picture over here. It's important for us to be aware of that, because there are many different tragedies that happen in life. You look at 45 people who were going to celebrate Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and they died in such a tragic death. You look at so many people that die from lo aleinu illnesses, young, and you ask yourself, what's going on, right? Exactly. Nistarot darkei Hashem. The ways of Hashem are hidden. It's important for us to be aware of that. Yes, we should always see good things. Yes. I want to just bring out one more point, which is interesting as well. And this has to do with the frogs, the plague of the frogs. So first of all, I saw a chidush, which I'll share with you. The Midrash tells us that the frogs acted like a land survey. Very interesting. We know that when you have different properties, they make a survey of the house to know until where is this guy's property and where is this guy's property. You have to know. For a long time, there was a dispute between Egypt and Ethiopia. Where's the border, right? So the Midrash says that the frogs, they covered they didn't just go in one spot of Egypt. They were in the whole Egypt. They covered everywhere. So now, when they reached the border of Egypt, so then that's where they stopped. So everywhere the frogs went was Egypt. So this clarified the dispute as to where exactly is Egypt and where does Ethiopia begin, which is a very interesting thing. Apparently Ethiopia reached Egypt at that time. So it would clarify. By the way, there was a similar thing. It says about the man. The man clarified certain things as well. For example, let's say you have a woman that she got pregnant. Okay, she was married to her first husband, right? And then she got divorced from him. And then she married the second husband and married him, but she didn't wait for 3 months. Let's say it was only 2 months. So the Gemara tells her when a woman gets divorced, you can't marry her until 3 months after. Because what if the last husband, maybe the night before they were together and she got pregnant? You never know. You never know. Okay, fine. So therefore, you have to wait 3 months. So that way you could tell that she's pregnant, and you would know that if you marry her, this is the previous man's child. Okay. Now, in this case, the guy was a little bit in a hurry. He didn't wait. Okay, 2 months, fine. Now, the Gemara tells us another thing. The Gemara says, back in the time of the Talmud, it was possible for a woman to have a 9-month pregnancy, and it was also possible for her to have a 7-month pregnancy, a shorter version. 8 months, the baby would be considered dead upon arrival. It's like a stillborn, Hashem Yishmor. The Gemara says that an 8-month baby would be considered like dead automatically. So there are two options. There's 9 months, there's 7 months. So now, this guy gets married after 2 months. She's pregnant. And we want to know, is the baby the son of husband of the ex, right? Or is he the son of the new one? And it's a 7-month pregnancy. So the Gemara says what they would do is they would see when Hashem sends the man in the morning, where does the extra portion of man fall? Does it fall in the house of the new husband, or does it fall in the house of the old husband? If it falls in the house of the new husband, that means that he's the son of the new husband. If it falls in the house of the old husband, that means it's the previous guy's son. Now the question is that all the poskim want to know, is this something that you can actually rely on, halachically, right? Is this something that has actually grounds in halach? And they debate it back and forth. The simple understanding is that no way. We would never decide whether it's this man's son or that man's son based on something miraculous. Even if it says, even if a Navi, let's say there's a murder, okay? And a Navi comes and says, he shot the guy. God spoke to me, and we know this guy's legit. God spoke to me, he says it was him. No, we don't kill the guy. Right, Moshe, no. It says, Al pi shnaim edim yakum davar. You have to have two witnesses. You don't have two witnesses, go fly a kite. Right? That's it. That's the way it works. You have to have two witnesses. Now, over here, that's the big thing that the poskim talk about over here. Now, we know the Midrash tells us this frog came out of the water. It was a huge, huge, gigantic frog. They would hit the frog, and what would happen? Rivers of little tiny frogs would come out of the big frog's mouth, and that's how they got out, and they went into the land of Egypt. Until they hit this frog, according to the Midrash, it wouldn't go anywhere. No frogs, it was just this one big one. That's why it says, Vata'al hatzefardea. The frog came out of the Nile River. So it says one frog, right? So that means, what? It was one big frog. And as they would, the Midrash says, as they hit it, these tremendous, the Egyptians wanted to kill it. The more they hit it, the more the frogs came out. That's what the Midrash tells us. Yeah? We're good?
Yeah. So how many times did they hit it to cover the whole land of Egypt?
Exactly. That's the right question, Sasson. How many times did they hit it? If it covered the entire Egypt, they must have hit it a lot. Now, the Stipler Gaon, the father of Rabbi Kaniel, he asked a question. He says, I don't understand. You see what's happening. You see that when you hit the frog, it becomes much worse. So what do? The right thing to do would be stop hitting the frog. Let the frog do its thing and walk away. Just stop.
Did he die then?
Eventually he went back in. When all the frogs went back, he went back too. But the point is, what are you doing? Use your sechel. What?
Frog's dying.
My point is, why are you hitting the frog? You understand the question? What are you hitting the frog? What are you hitting the frog for? You see that it's making things worse. Stop. So the answer that he gives is, when a person doesn't control his anger, then he can't stop. He's out of control. Even if it doesn't make any sense. Abotai, this line is so important. So important. If we would just listen to the words of the Stipler Gaon, what he's telling us, for example, let's say, that right now is a tense moment. Things are high pressure. Let's say it's Erev Pesach. The missus is in the middle of preparing a lot of different things, and she's got a lot of things to do. And, you said something harmlessly, maybe, not intending for anything to happen. And guess what she did? She exploded at you. How could you? What? Exactly. Right? So here you are, right? You're taking the heat. Now, it might be a line, one of these lines like, you never do anything around the house, right? You never do anything around that. You leave everything for me, everything is on me, blah, 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 blah. Now, if you're not careful, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to be like the Egyptians hitting the frog, because you're going to hit the frog. You're going to say, what are you talking about? How dare you talk to me like that? What's the matter with you? Don't you know I do that, blah, blah, blah. And what's the matter with you? Maybe you should do this, blah, blah, blah. And you start to attack her. And guess what happens? Does it make things better? No. It makes things worse. So why do you even respond the first time?
Sorry, that's it.
Well, you have to think. Because sometimes you have to think about these things, because if you, again, sometimes you have to address certain things. There's no choice. But there's a question, how are you going to do that? Are you going to do that in a way that things are going to escalate? And what if things do escalate? Do you continue? Do you make it get even worse? You have to be thinking, right? You have to know where things are going to go, right? And you have to know that you have the power to stop it. You have the power to control it. If you lose control, that's when the whole Egypt fills up with frogs. And it doesn't make sense because all they had to do is stop it. They were their own worst enemies. It's a story. The Bet Yosef brings it down. It says that we know that the Jews in the desert for 40 years had the Be'er Miriam. That was the water that they drank for 40 years. Be'er Miriam. The Be'er Miriam had the power to cure and heal anybody who drank this water. This was the miraculous water that the Jews drank in the desert. If you drank it, you were cured, you were healed. It says that after the desert, where did it go? Into the heart of the Kinneret. Exactly. Into the heart of the Kinneret. It's there, and on
Ariya
Kadosh knew where it was. He told Reb Chaim Vital, this is where Be'er Miriam is. But it says that on Motzei Shabbat, the Be'er Miriam goes into all the different rivers and all the different lakes, and it spreads out on Motzei Shabbat. And if you're lucky, you get to drink from it, and you have a refuah shlema in every part of your body. Even just touching it would give you a refuah shlema. So, what? Could get anywhere. Motzei Shabbat is very special to go draw the water. That's what it says. It goes into the lakes, into the rivers. This one lady left on Motzei Shabbat in her house. She goes to the river. She goes to draw water. Took her, I guess, a little bit longer than usual. And her husband had boils all over his body. Massive pimples that covered his entire body. He was a very, very unpleasant person to be around. Definitely not to look at him. Very, very sad. At any rate, she comes back, and it happened to be that when she drew water, she had the Be'er Miriam water in her bucket. She opens the door. The husband was upset at her. He said, "Why take you so long?" And she got a little scared. She dropped the bucket. The bucket fell on the floor, burst everywhere, and they lost it all. But a few drops went flying on the husband. Wherever it went on the husband, he got healed. He got healed. But wherever, unfortunately, it went to waste, he lost that opportunity to be totally healed. So
really from Kaniel come up.
It says it travels. Not necessarily from the Kinneret. Again, it's miraculous. It's Be'er Miriam. It went through the desert. It moves. It rolls. It goes throughout the earth. I understand. The point is that it's a miracle. It's able to travel all over. In the desert, it was in the desert, right? It traveled 40 years in the desert, under the ground. It goes. At any rate, my point to you, gentlemen, is that the person who doesn't control his anger and gets angry, he only causes himself damage. This guy could have had a refuah shlema. He lost it all. Why? Because he didn't control himself. He let himself go. He got it, which understandably happens to people from time to time. But it's important to make sure that a person controls it. I will stop over here, guys. Chazakim Buchim. Thanks for joining us on Zoom. Tizkuru mitzvot, everybody.